Hello there, Atheist Jr. here, your friend and humble narrator, and in today's video I'm going to be reacting to part of the latest Kent Hovind debate. And if you've seen any Kent Hovind debate, you know what he says in his opening statement. He just, goes through his 6 stages of evolution and then says, oh, there is no evidence for evolution. And I don't think we need to sit through that again. Plus, Kent basically tries to full on dox this guy, as he does in many of his debates, where he shows the dude's full legal name and then even shows his email address at one point, says who he voted for and his website address and all this stuff. So I don't want to show that on my channel. And then Donald, his opponent, he has an interesting strategy where he, instead of trying to argue with Kent that, you can't conflate stellar and cosmic evolution with Darwin's theory of biological evolution, natural selection, micro and macro evolution. Instead, he argues in the favorable position that evolution is ubiquitous, because he's using a different definition of the word evolution, the original definition, which is basically just the accumulation of changes building up over time. So in that sense, I would agree with him that evolution is ubiquitous. And it's an interesting strategy because, if you try to argue with Kent, about these things not being conflated with biological evolution, it really just eats up all of the time of the debate. So it's an interesting strategy, and I haven't seen it before. So without further ado, let's go.
Who knows what? Fair. I've got way more stuff than I can cover in the time we have.
Gotcha. We'll jump into the open discussion, which will be 45 minutes. I've got the timer set. The floor is all yours, gentlemen.
Donald, you brought up several things. You said the evolution of dance. Do you think that's happening by itself, or is there any intelligent input into that?
Oh, there's definitely intelligent input into it. And yes, it is definitely happening. What's that?
Is that what you mean by evolution? That changes can happen with intelligence guiding the changes? Is that what you mean?
No, that's not what I mean by evolution. I said what I meant by evolution.
That's why I said there are 6 different meanings to the word.
But you want to address that? Sure. Let's address that. How about we do that? Okay. Let's see.
I gave lots of examples of what's called microevolution. There are 400 varieties of cabbage. Is that proof enough to you that cabbage and mosquitoes are related?
Actually, if you recall, I was the one who told you about that. You didn't know about it at the time. Brassica eracea. Yeah, that was me on the phone. I told you I had taught you something. You said you didn't recall the conversation. That was it.
Oh, you taught me that there
was
400 kinds of cabbage.
That was one of a few things I taught you, actually.
Are you telling me that you taught me there are 400 kinds of cabbage? You might have done that. That's a good. I thank you for telling me. Is that?
Well, I didn't say exactly how many kinds, but I did bring it up to you, and I did bring up some of the variety, and I did talk about their evolution, how they evolved, why they evolved, and I'm glad you learned from it.
Donald, are they still cabbage?
Typical Kent Hovind talking down to his opponent and speaking to them like they're a dumb child. It's really disrespectful and annoying.
Yes, and they're still mustard as well.
And they're still what?
They're still mustard as well.
They're still mustard. So is that evidence convincing to you that cabbage and mosquitoes are related if you go back in time far enough?
What's it have to do with mosquitoes?
Well, the charts
mosquitoes aren't an ancestor of cabbage. You can't go back in time and find mosquitoes from cabbage.
The charts we teach the kids in school, like I have up on the screen, show that whales and mosquitoes and cabbage have a common ancestor. They have lines going back to a single common ancestor.
They also have genes tracing them back to a common ancestor.
Okay, so
the lines are just somebody's way of showing what the evidence is. That's not the evidence.
Do you believe this chart represents science, that there is scientific evidence that a whale
and a mosquito of it? Yes. The chart is not the science, but yes, it does represent the science.
So I'm trying to get clear for the audience here. You believe whales and mosquitoes have a common ancestor sometime long ago and far away. What is the evidence that
I don't have a belief.
It's like he just said, the genetics is the evidence. It's irrefutable.
Such a thing. The evidence
mosquitoes are related?
Genetic evidence strongly indicates. And not just that they're related, but exactly how they're related.
Okay, I think I could show you thousands of books right here in my library that all use a common code called the English language, 26 letters.
Yeah.
This is a non sequitur. This is what Kent always does.
Have you heard of the book of Pandas and People?
Yeah.
There is a particular case where an ancestor of one version of that book was shown to be an ancestor of that version of that book because of the evidence left behind in it. There was a transitional fossil left in the book.
There was.
That was in a court case.
Donald, I would say the English language
Wow, that just completely went over Kent's head.
has 26 letters, and that's the common code that all English books are written in.
Did you know did you know ampersand used to be a letter in the English alphabet?
Just to be sure, what we might have to do is just to kind of eliminate the interruptions. We might have to kick it to like a 3-minute response from each side.
Nah. I'll just let him talk. I've got stuff to say. When he's ready to let me say it, he can go ahead and do that. Go ahead, Ken.
I want to make sure I understand you clearly what your position is. You think that this chart is showing the kids the truth that whales and mosquitoes have a common ancestor because they have the same DNA code. Is that your evidence for relationship? They have the same code that the life form is written in?
That is the evidence, yes. And I know for a fact that chart is an extreme oversimplification. But yes, it probably is intended to show them the truth as well as could be shown for someone of that age in a textbook.
But you think it's okay to show? You're saying you think it's okay to show students in school by the millions at taxpayer expense that whales and mosquitoes have a common ancestor by using this chart? What's that?
Is that what we're debating? Because I thought the debate.
You said the evidence for evolution is ubiquitous. You're saying the evidence is everywhere. Where is the evidence that mosquitoes and whales have a common ancestor? You're
Just completely dodged the question.
saying the DNA
in
code.
the genetics. You got that right. It's in the genetics.
I would agree. They have many similarities in the DNA code, the CATG, but that could prove the same designer made the code.
Yeah, except it's not just a matter of similarity.
Even if these animals had the same designer, that doesn't refute the fact that they have genetic relationship and that you can follow the genetics back and it shows the common ancestry. I don't know why he thinks this is an argument against the genetics showing common ancestry. Who cares who created life or if it was created by natural processes? DNA is still a fact. Genetics are still indisputable.
1 second. I'm going to give you a chance to respond.
So much again?
1 sec, Donald. They are saying, Donald, that I think your mic might be bumping into your shirt and it causes a noise that is distracting you.
Let me try to fix that if I can. I've got through here maybe.
Let it evolve.
Then it shouldn't bounce around. Is that better?
I think that's better.
Okay, hopefully it will be.
Okay, Donald, would it be okay if someone chose to believe that the whale and the mosquito have a common designer? Because all we've ever actually seen, you said you wouldn't interrupt. All we've ever actually seen is whales.
Kent, you interrupt people constantly, and the reason that people feel the need to interrupt you during debates is because you just gish gallop and talk endlessly. And of course, the spineless moderator James will never butt in and say, oh, Kent, let's give the other guy time to respond. He'll do that for Kent to make sure Kent doesn't get interrupted. But, he'll never do it for the opponent. He's incredibly biased. So, yeah, that's why, Kent, you think people interrupt you so much.
Produce whales. We've never seen a whale produce a non-whale. Never. So why would you say it's science to believe it happened in the past when it can't happen today? Science is things we can observe, study, and test, and demonstrate. They observe whales making baby whales. That's as far as it goes.
So you're saying that because we haven't seen a whale give birth to a dolphin or a grasshopper, that evolution isn't true? Seems to me like you're intentionally strawmanning what evolution is, and you aren't arguing in good faith at all because you're a con man who's simply using creationism as a way to make money so you can buy more four-wheelers.
Are you ready for an answer to that?
Yeah, I'd love to hear an answer to that one.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we have observed many things giving rise to things that they weren't. What they don't do is stop being what they were.
Wait, that's a contradictory statement. Say that
No,
slower.
it's not at all a contradictory statement.
Okay.
As I said, the cabbages are still mustard. Broccoli is still a mustard.
And Kent is still an ape.
Are they still plants?
They're still plants as well, yes. Plants
does
never.
Does that prove
plants,
plants and whales are related?
There's only one way that a plant reproducing sexually produce a non-plant, and that is for it to mate with a non-plant. And if, for example, if a pine tree mated with an elephant successfully, you know what that would be? You know what the result would be?
Stupid.
The result would be a eukaryote. Because that's what they both are. Both parents would be eukaryotes, the offspring would be eukaryotes. So yes, they would be producing the same, as you call it, kind. The thing is, I don't see any evidence that those are created kinds. I see, yes, you can use the word kind, okay, and I can go along with that. And it can be vague or very specific depending on how you go about using it.
It'll be vague.
But yeah, if an elephant and a pine tree successfully mated, whether through help from a laboratory or somehow they did it on their own, their offspring would be a eukaryote.
You're aware, of course, that it is not possible in any laboratory if a group of scientists, intelligent scientists, could take the gene code from an elephant and cross it with the gene code from a pine tree to create a elephant. Okay, that would prove it takes intelligence to do this. It doesn't happen in nature.
No, it wouldn't.
All we see, all we observe is pine trees make pine trees. I got thousands of them on my property here. Come see them. Pine trees make pine trees every time. But you think, Donald, you think pine trees came from a single-celled organism, don't you?
Yes.
Why would you believe such a thing?
Every last one of them.
Every pine tree came from a single-celled organism.
Yep.
Is that what you believe?
Yep.
And you want
every pine tree was a single-celled organism at one stage in its life, and it came from that, and it survived every stage along the way. And by the way, the word evolution was used to describe an embryo's development long before it was used to describe the evolution of life over generations.
Now that's where I started at the beginning asking, what exactly do you mean by evolution? If a single
all
cell,
of the things you named and none of the things you called them.
Hold on, Donald.
Okay.
Just
Sorry,
the interruptions, you might have to go to a three-minute interval.
Oh, fuck off, James.
I was only trying to answer him, let him go.
If a sperm and egg combine to make a zygote, a single cell, and it slowly develops into a human being, is that, in your mind, evolution?
That is one type of evolution, yes. That is not reproductive evolution, and the changes that it makes over its lifetime will not be passed on. If it, for example, comes into contact with some chemical that changes, that affects its eye color, so it ends up with purple eyes, it doesn't mean its offspring are going to have purple eyes. It doesn't have the genetics to have that happen. It just, had that happen as a development during its lifetime.
I taught biology 15 years. I understand that extremely well. But
bullshit, Kent. If you if you really did teach biology, then you would actually understand biology and biological evolution, but you don't.
Would you agree that the zygote forming from a sperm and an egg is following a code as it develops? What told it to divide and make two? And eventually you get a right and a left side of the body. This is an incredibly complicated four-dimensional code, way more than our two-dimensional, code that we use for our computers.
What? Four-dimensional code? You've lost me, Kent.
This is four-dimensional, three-dimensional, 4 this is not simple. It's so if you're thinking that a single cell is developing into a pine tree because the pollen fell on the seed and pollinated it, and that is what you mean by evolution, then you're being very deceitful to let the kids get a chart. Yes, you are. To let a kids get a chart like this, that's evidence that a pine tree and a whale are related.
You're conflating.
Deceitful.
No, you are conflating.
Complaining? I'm pointing out the
obvious.
obvious.
No, I said you are conflating. You are conflating one.
Okay.
Yes, you are conflating two different things.
It's not science to say that a pine tree.
That is not the evolution of an embryo. That is evolution of many, many, many generations of populations. And what's represented in the pictures is a simple depiction of some member or some representative graphic representation of that particular population at that.
Yes, yes. Thank you for mentioning populations. It's exactly right.
Point in the graph that they're showing. That's all that is. It's, as I mentioned, an oversimplification. But that is population genetics. That's reproductive evolution. That's not evolution of an embryo. And it's also not cosmic evolution. By the way, you have said that cosmic evolution is the origin of time and space, the Big Bang. That's an origin, not a process. Evolution is a process. Cosmic evolution is the evolution of the cosmos. In other words, cosmic evolution is the process of change accumulating or being accumulated. As the cosmos changes, it adds up changes. That doesn't matter whether that you and I are part of the cosmos. We're part of cosmic evolution. In other words, the accumulation of developmental changes and generative changes and destructive changes and all other kinds of changes that have accumulated anywhere in the universe during all of time across all of space, potentially including whatever caused the Big Bang, although we currently have no way of knowing that, but certainly including the accumulation of changes that produce subatomic particles, atoms, molecules, complex chemicals, galaxies, stars, planets, weather patterns, ecosystems, biology, cellular life, multicellular life, the diversity of ocean life, land life, mammals like us, and even human cultures. However, evolution is not an origin event as you keep making it out to be. It's a process.
Well, in order for anything to evolve, it has to exist. How did it come into existence? Where did matter come from?
Well, evolution creates things.
Evolution has a will, a mind. Is evolution? No. Is your God named evolution?
No.
Why
would you conflate a natural process with a supernatural deity?
Well, you are giving natural process, as you call it, deity powers to create. Where did time, space, and matter come from?
You are assigning those things to a deity. You're assigning those as deity powers.
And
I'm
so
not.
are you.
I recognize the natural processes.
This natural process is your God. You think that natural process can create time, space, and matter and create life from non-living material. Your God.
I didn't say that. I said that's something we don't know.
You'd be embarrassed to say. I'll say it for you.
No.
You believe evolution. Evolution is your God.
So you're straw manning me on purpose now.
No. You said. I said, where did time, space, matter come from? You said evolution created it.
That is not what he said, Kent. You are a liar.
You're giving
That's
evolution
not what I said. No, again, you're straw manning me. I did not say that.
Tell me where time, space, matter came from. One more time.
I don't know. Neither do you.
Well, is it okay if I say I believe God did it? And since you don't know, wait, since nobody knows, why are we teaching all this to the kids in public school like we do know?
You could say the tooth fairy did it too. It wouldn't make it true.
Oh, I agree. See, I'm not telling everybody they've got to pay to teach my religion in the school. You want everybody to pay to teach your religion, don't you?
But you do sell your books and you do go to schools and do your preaching and stuff like that. So yeah, in a way you are actually. You are actually.
Oh my God! Yes, I've been waiting so long for somebody to call Kent out on this in a debate, and finally this dude did it. Finally. Oh my gosh, watching this whole debate is worth it for that moment. Like, I'm literally like so proud of this guy right now. Yes, this is Kent's biggest freaking lie. And I have a video on my channel called Kent Hovind's Biggest Lie where I go into this in detail. But this is Kent's get out of jail free card. This is what Kent always goes to in every single debate, and it's completely false.
Doing what you just said you don't do. But if we can get on with the actual debate.
Wait a minute. I'm not going to let that one slide. I am not requiring the taxpayer to pay my salary while I teach them that mosquitoes and whales came from a rock.
That's not what he said. Oh my God, Kent, that's not what he said. He said that you're giving presentations of your Christian creationist propaganda in public schools. And I've even seen a video where Kent says to hand out his DVDs to kids that you don't know at bus stops. Not that, he's trying to teach evolution, but this is what Kent always does. He reframes the accusation to something completely different.
I'm not doing that. See, your textbook
So
shows that animals and fungi and plants have a common ancestor. I think they're lying.
So you're straw manning them as well.
No, it's not straw.
I already told you. I already said in my opening statement. We agree that we didn't come from a rock.
Well, the books teach that.
No.
Bullshit.
Not any that got it right, and most of them do get it right. Yes, some make errors.
Donald, let me ask you a simple question. Do you believe the Earth was a hot molten ball of rock 4.6 billion years ago? You don't believe that?
No, I believe that the Earth was a hot molten ball of a whole lot of different elements, and that it was liquid. It was not rock.
Okay. Did the liquid cool down and turn to rock?
Some of it.
Some of it did. Okay, on the surface. Did it rain on those rocks for millions of years and make oceans?
No.
A lot of the water in Earth's oceans came from meteorites that had ice on them.
They didn't. Where did the primordial soup come from?
Who said anything about primordial soup? We were talking about the early Earth.
Yeah, the textbooks teach that life had to form in this primordial soup.
Yeah, but you're jumping way ahead. You were talking about the early Earth. The early Earth had water in it.
So where did this water come from?
As I said, it was a mixture of a bunch of different elements.
And where did these elements come from? From nothing?
Wow, I mean, how fast can you move the goalposts? Seriously.
Well, they're getting into cosmic evolution and stellar evolution. You want me to go into details?
You chose the title for the debate. Is
absolutely
ubiquitous?
I'm ready for it if that's what you want.
Okay,
You want me to go into details? I
said
did have other things I was going to try to add, but yeah.
Okay. Your claim is that the evidence for evolution is everywhere. Which kind of evolution are you talking about?
Evolution. I'm not talking about one kind. I'm talking about evolution.
And what do you mean by that word? That dogs and pine trees are related? Or
It has nothing to do with dogs and pine trees. Evolution is the process of change accumulating or being accumulated. It is a process. It's not a history. It's not a claim. It's not a story. It's not a religion. It has nothing to do with any of the stuff you make it out to be. That's all it is.
You think that the evidence for evolution, for a process, is ubiquitous. The process of changing to a different kind. I showed you that there are 400 varieties.
You're strawmanning me again.
I am not. I'm trying to get you to understand.
Did.
Okay, let me try to make it simple. Okay.
You can ask me about that. I'll answer it.
Okay, there are 60 varieties of oak trees. They might have had a common ancestor called a tree. Is that evidence that trees and mosquitoes are related in your mind?
No, that has nothing to do with mosquitoes.
Okay, well,
you didn't mention mosquitoes in that, so no, it doesn't.
Let's try another one.
The fact that they're both eukaryotes does.
So the fact that they're both eukaryotes, the mosquito and the oak tree are both eukaryotes, therefore they are related in your mind. Is that correct?
Because they have both.
Yes, exactly right, Kent. That's exactly right.
Because they have both inherited genes from primitive eukaryotes, and there is a trail of how those genes were inherited, and what are their closest relatives, and exactly how they're related to each other. It's all in the genetics. It's all in the code. It's all in the exact order of the DNA.
Would you
It's
please
like reading.
explain?
It's like reading a book.
Okay, where's this code? Where's this? You said there's a trail of how this happened. What is it? What trail are you referring to, Donald?
I'm talking about, well, for one, endogenous retroviruses. They're inherited.
So the fact that different species have endogenous retroviruses is indication they have a common
It's not the fact that
ancestor.
they have them. It's not the fact that they have them. It's exactly where they have them in their genome and exactly what changes to them have happened over time as they have passed them on from generation to generation to generation, because those changes are trackable across the different species, across the different genuses, across the families and larger groups. These are all things that, I mean, for example, there's several endogenous retroviruses that all mammals have, but we don't all have the exact same copy of. Some of them have evolved a little bit. They've accumulated little changes. They've micro-evolved.
Okay, now, would you agree that computer code to write, let's say, Microsoft PowerPoint, the program code to write PowerPoint, how many lines of code would that be, Steve? Millions of lines of code to make PowerPoint.
Oh, this nonsense again.
Are there any mistakes in Microsoft PowerPoint code, do you think? Do you think over the years the programmer might have made a mistake?
Yeah.
They still find mistakes, okay? Does that therefore prove that nobody wrote the code?
No.
Can't ask these weird non sequitur questions where he'll make a statement and he'll be like, does this prove this totally unrelated statement? Like, it has nothing to do with what you're talking about.
Oh, good. We're getting somewhere. We're getting somewhere. Good. Well, because you think, because there are endogenous retroviruses, we'll call that a mistake.
Instead of telling me what I think, why don't you ask me?
Okay. Do you believe that the evidence of a mistake in the genetic code, which is way more complicated than Microsoft PowerPoint code, is evidence that nobody wrote that code?
No.
You do? Yes, you do. I'll answer for you.
No.
Yes, you do.
What?
You know that.
Wow, I mean, that says it all, doesn't it? Like, not only does Kent not listen to the answers, if he doesn't get the answer he wants, he'll just answer for you.
There you go. Strawmanning me again. Why? Why do you strawman me?
Do you agree that the code in a single cell is more complex, has more lines of code than Microsoft PowerPoint with its millions of lines of code?
It doesn't have any lines of code at all. We call the code by analogy. It is actually a poor analogy, but it is an analogy. And yes, that is a common thing that it's called. But that's kind of like when they call the Earth spinning when it's rotating at one revolution every 24 hours. The word spin is defined as rapid rotation. The Earth doesn't rotate rapidly. The Earth does not spin. But I recognize that people refer to planetary spin when what they mean is planetary rotation. That's a well-known historic use of the word. It is colloquial, and I will not use it that way, but I do understand that other people.
I agree. The DNA sequence is really not the same thing as a computer code because the ATCG sequence is often redundant, where you can change not just one letter but multiple letters and have nothing change in the organism. But with computer code, a lot of times if you have one period or one bracket out of sequence or in the wrong place, it can screw up your entire program. So, they're really not the same. It's just like he said, it's a colloquial definition. But trying to literally compare the coding of a PowerPoint program to genetics, it's just nonsensical.
Okay, so how about the information found in the genetic code? Everybody refers to it as a genetic code, the four-part CATG, and whereas our binary code we use only has two, plus minus, or on off, or yes no. So the code that man uses, the code that man...
Nobody writes in binary code. That's just the sequence that computers actually understand once you get down to the hardware level,
uses for all of his computers is primitive compared to the code found in all life forms.
So the binary code, which is has two characters, is primitive compared to a code that has four characters. Okay, Kent.
Very primitive. And yet you
And
think
much more precise.
right. And you think nobody wrote that code.
No, I'm saying the code on computers is much more precise. What you're calling code in genetics is loosely able to be called code because it doesn't behave as predictably as what you call code in a computer.
Well, do you think the code in computer, is there any chance this code could happen by chance?
Yes.
There is.
I have written programs to do exactly that. I've actually written programs that write other programs, make them up as they go.
Okay, think about what you are saying. You have created a program.
Right?
Do you have an intelligent mind?
Yes.
Okay. So it took
And
intelligence.
I'm not saying your God didn't make the Big Bang.
Yeah, Kent, you said could any code happen by chance?
He is invited to come speak for himself if he wants to say he did. Otherwise, we have nothing more to say about your God. Let's talk about evolution.
God is busy. He sent me to straighten you out. Okay.
So your God isn't powerful enough to take a little time off and speak for himself?
Oh, no.
He has to have. Do you think you can speak for your God better than he can?
Oh no, he's already spoken very clearly. He actually wrote a book. I've read it many times.
Yeah, actually, no, he didn't. That was written by a human.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, no, God did not write anything.
Being.
Well,
You think they could speak better? You think they could speak for him better than he can?
Well, if I dictate a letter to my secretary and she writes it, it's my words, right?
Kent comparing himself to God once again.
This down, secretary, and she writes it down. Is it my words or my words?
So then why couldn't God keep them from getting all those errors introduced into all the different translations? I mean, if it was really his word.
Well, we're way off topic. I would defy you to show me an error in the King James.
We're getting off topic even though I brought up this topic, we're getting off topic.
Bible, but that's let's have another
we're not on that.
Yeah, there are no errors in your specific version of the Bible that's been translated, even though there are.
Topic. So let's stick to the topic at hand. The Bible has evolved. We both know that.
No, we don't know that. You might believe that.
The Bible has accumulated changes over time. It has been translated and retranslated, and each time that happens, it gets little changes, and sometimes those changes get corrected, but the correction is also a change being made. So when an error happens, that's a change. If someone corrects that error, that's another change. Sometimes change will exactly undo the change that was made accidentally, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes someone will correct something that they thought was an error, and it wasn't actually an error, and they end up introducing an error by trying to correct an error. All of that is part of the evolution of the Bible. The Bible has evolved.
That's exactly what you are doing. You're introducing an error to try to correct what you think is an error. The fact is, cows produce cows, and dogs produce dogs, and mosquitoes produce mosquitoes without exception. And you're introducing an error into our textbook by saying that's proof that they're related long ago and far away. It's fairy tale.
You're strawmanning me again.
No, I'm not. I'm pointing out the obvious to anybody.
I did not say that. You have repeatedly said that I'm saying that, and I haven't said it once.
Okay, well, let me show you the chart again, okay? Do you believe these charts are accurate that say animals and plants have a common ancestor? This is found in all the biology textbooks.
That's a statement. I don't need a chart for the statement. Yes, the statement is true. We do have evidence that they have a common ancestor, yes. Actually, it's probably not just common ancestor, it's probably a common population ancestor, not an individual ancestor. But it doesn't really matter. The reason why I specify that is because if you go back as far as unicellular animals, or not animals, unicellular life forms, there's a lot of horizontal gene transfer, and it gets a little bit of a gray area. Who is whose parent?
I know who my parents were.
Yeah.
Very funny meme, Kent.
Because you're not unicellular. You evolved from an egg.
I evolved?
Yes, you evolved from a fertilized egg. You didn't evolve generation by generation from an egg. Your cells evolved generation by generation from a fertilized egg and produced the colony of cells that is your body.
I agree. I'm a colony of cells. There are probably more cells in the human body than there are stars in the sky.
Yeah,
It's phenomenal.
there are a lot of.
I'm not sure about that. I mean, if you mean in the visible sky from Earth, then maybe, but if you mean in the universe itself, then hell no.
There are a lot of cells in the body, and you know what? Most of those cells in the human body are. They're not human. The vast majority, by numbers,
by chance. Each one of those cells is more complex than the space shuttle. And
by numbers, you are more.
Not really. I mean, look at a diagram of a cell in a textbook, and then look at the schematics of the space shuttle or the International Space Station. It's far more complicated.
More bacteria than human.
Wow. Okay.
There are more bacterial cells in you than human cells because bacterial cells are very small.
I believe that this is actually incorrect, but, you know, I understand the sentiment.
I agree. You chose the title for the debate that the evidence for evolution is ubiquitous, and you're
No, that wasn't the title. It's evolution is ubiquitous. Yes, the evolution is also ubiquitous, but that wasn't it.
Okay.
The evidence is ubiquitous, but the title is
evidence for evolution is everywhere. And yet
evolution is everywhere.
Evolution is everywhere. Wow.
Yes.
Okay. And so by that word evolution, you mean change. So you have to have something to change. Where did the matter, the time, the space come from? Where did the energy come from for this? Where did the food come from for all these organisms to eat all this time?
Should we back up to where you just got me wrong again?
What now?
Should we back up to where you just strawmanned me again? Where you asked you, that's what I meant. I said no.
I am trying to figure out what you think you believe. I don't think you know either. Go ahead.
It's no matter of belief. Linguistics is my field. One of several, actually.
Okay.
Evolution is the process of change adding up. It's not just change. If you roll a dice and you get a 6, and then you turn it over and you get a 1, the change from a 6 to a 1 was not evolution. The turning it over was evolution because the turning over is movement, and movement is the accumulation of change in position.
Okay. You evolve your dice for 20 billion years. When?
Okay, this video is starting to get really long, and I've seen the rest of this open discussion. There's not much of it left, and it's literally just Kent asking the same questions he's already asked over and over again. So I'm going to end the video here.